The following episode makes reference to mental health issues and uses words such as psycho and crazy throughout, and such terms are not meant to be offensive or derogatory. Los Compas are not psychologists or mental health professionals. This podcast is presented purely as entertainment.
Welcome to Los Compas Lounge, a PSA for brown men.
We are your hosts. I am Raul.
Yes, Javier.
And this is Ruben. And this is Los Compas Lounge, a podcast by three Chicanos from East LA talking about issues that matter to you.
We're here to inspire positive change.
So have a seat, compa. We have one ready for you here at the lounge.
So we decided that it'd be in your best interest if we put you somewhere where you can get the help that you need. And I go, wait, what are you talking about? We decided my best interest? How do you know what my best interest is? How can you say what my best interest is? Well, I went to your schools. I went to your churches. I went to your institutional learning facilities. So how can you say I'm crazy?
I'm not crazy.
Institutionalized.
Everybody's crazy.
You're the one that's crazy.
Institutionalized.
You're driving me crazy.
Institutionalized.
They stick me in an institution, said was the only solution to protect me from my worst enemy, myself.
Yeah. That's a great cyclone rolla. There you go. Now you got warmed up, huh?
Yeah. No, it's like, you know, a lot of times people, they just keep doing the same thing over and over, and they just expecting different results. You know, it's like, you just go through a cycle, you know, and it's like, okay, here we go again. You do it and maybe things will be different, and no, they end up the same results. It's cycle.
And then you end up blaming somebody else. Like, oh, look at me. I did everything you told me to do, or you know, I tried to walk a straight line, and then I fell off. And well, fuck. Then why? What's the point in trying? Right? And then you do it again.
You know, it's like this cycle, man. You know, like, you know, it's like a psychopath. You're doing what everyone tells you to do because that's the way it has to be done. You're doing things the way the society tells you to do because that's the only way to fit in. That's the only way to be. But you know what? What if it doesn't fit you? You know, what if what you keep on doing isn't showing the results that everyone else is saying is going to happen? And it starts messing with you. It starts messing with your mind. It starts messing with your body. It starts messing with your friendships. It starts messing with your family. It starts messing with your money. You know, where are you at? You know, the people around you are making you insane because it's not working for you.
Or rather, you know, that's definitely one way to look at it. But I also look at it as, at some point, you're responsible for your own actions and your own behaviors. You know, at some point you have to learn that, right? You have to take that leap. You have to grow and be able to take control of your life. I totally understand that maybe you didn't have the tools and the developmental support growing up. Maybe you were in an abusive family, abusive relationships, or whatever the situation is. I totally get it. I mean, I know plenty of people. Well, I'm not going to say plenty of people, and they're going to say, well, you're a psycho too. Well, I know people in my experience where, yes, they came from abusive families, and maybe they dropped out in junior high or whatever it is, and they didn't have those tools and support networks at all. And you talk to them now, and they're stuck in junior high, man. Their mentality is totally stuck in junior high. And you just kind of say, hi, you know, how you doing? And you just move on. But at some point, that person, if they're able to wake up from where they're at and realize that, hey, I need to do something today to grow and improve myself, or to break that cyclical behavioral situation we're talking about here, you know, that's the first step, man. Because if you're too far gone, then you're basically clinically insane, right? You know, that's what we're talking about in terms of doing the same thing expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity. But then we have folks that we all grew up with. Um, they're at that border where they're using it as a crutch or an excuse to say, oh, well, I do all these great things and I'm still a failure, and poor me, and
blame everybody but themselves.
exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. I think this podcast episode is really about that. It's like, get your head out of your behind, give yourself a good slap in the face, take a shot of some coffee or some grown-up pills or something, and wake up. You have to wake up, man. And that's really what I think we're talking about today.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to make a conscious decision to change, to do things different. Let's say you put on your left shoe always first, put on your right shoe, just to start with small things, just because it's like sometimes you just like, there's people, and I've been guilty of being in cycles myself. It's like doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, and it's like, until you make a conscious decision, say, you know what, this isn't working. It's like, I need to do something different, and then make a conscious decision to start doing things differently.
Yeah, but to credit to the people who are stuck in that, like, one thing I think about is abusive relationships, for example. I totally get it. I totally understand it. I wish it upon nobody, but you hear the stories growing up in high school and then in college of peers and then relatives in some cases where, oh, well, if he doesn't hit me, he doesn't love me. And that's like bullshit, right? Now we're grown men and we're realizing that it's abusive relationship. That's the definition of abusive relationship. And some women and men in some cases, but women for the most part, our sisters out there, I get it. They gone psychologically, they got torn down so much, or that's what they saw as a model growing up with perhaps their mom being in a crazy abusive relationship, and their friends are in an abusive relationship, or perhaps they don't have the best friends or circle of friends that would offer a support. But that's part of this conversation, or that's part of the cycle that we're talking about, where the example would be an abusive relationship. Like, I can't get out. I do want to get out, but I don't want to get out because he said he loves me, right? And then he beats the shit out of me, but he loves me. He's the only person who believes in me. So I'm not saying it's the woman's fault. Certainly it's not. And it's going to take a whole lot of help and support to get her out of that emotionally. And she needs to figure out, professional help or friends or whatever it is to get out. But it's the guy's fault, essentially, right? He's the one who psychologically brainwashed her and put this whole power relationship into play, and then plays upon her own lack of self-esteem and self-worth. And then he goes and essentially a coward, right? He beats her. And that sucks.
And I was gonna say, like, it goes
both
back,
ways.
Even before this whole discussion of abusive relationships, Raul, you mentioned it begins with the individual, and how does that begin? And for me, that process begins with coming to terms and coming to an understanding of knowing where you're at, and then trying to figure out the history of why you're at where you're at. And a lot of times, many times it goes back to your childhood, it goes back to maybe specific moments when you were a child, whether it was a specific incident or incidents between you and your parents, between you and other adults, between you and other kids at the time. And those emotional scars leave psychological barriers that are hard to grapple with, let alone hard, and on top of that, are really hard to come to terms with and then try to move forward. Fortunately, I don't have such deep scars in that manner, as an abusive relationship or being the abuser. Uh, but I do know folks who are in those relationships and have been in those relationships, and that requires like really serious, medical help. Going to your professionals, and that's obviously something that we're not the three of us here are not, but we are giving our 3 cents in, and we're giving our life
Experiences.
perspectives on
Yeah,
this,
exactly.
and like I said, I mean, it first comes, for me, it's like first becoming aware of it, acknowledging it, understanding that this is no longer helping me. It's actually, holding me back. And then on another layer, it's like, how is this affecting the people around me? And a la being in an abusive relationship, whether you're the abused or the abuser. And for me, it's almost like it's both. You are the abused and you are the abuser, because I'm not saying you're letting it happen, because when it's a deep psychological wound and scar, as a person are letting it happen. It's that scar, that pain, that fear that's holding you deep in that relationship, or whatever type of relationships. And like you guys were talking about, is if you grow up in that type of environment, that's your normative.
Mhm.
That's how you
Normal.
show love. That's how you give love. And even though as you're growing up, you see other models of a loving family or a loving relationship. Intellectually, logically, that's that's probably a better type of relationship. But for you, emotionally and psychologically, you're not used to that. You're used to being like we were talking about earlier, in this cycle, and that this is all I know, or better yet, this is all I'm comfortable with, even though
That's
it's
your comfort
painful.
zone.
Yeah, because it's a lot more comfortable to be in a situation in life that you know what the outcome is going to be, than actually stepping outside of there. Because stepping outside of that, it's not just stepping outside of your comfort zone, it's stepping outside of yourself. It's And you're going into the unknown, and the unknown is always the scariest thing for anyone, no matter what people tell you. Stepping out of yourself is the scariest thing, because if you step out of that position where you're at, that's where the hard work begins. And the hard work for me is trying to figure out who you are. And when you start to figure out who you are, your your worldview begins to crumble. And your worldview, basically being everything that you thought was real, begins to crumble. It's like being in an abusive relationship. I'm stepping out of it, but wait, all I knew was being in an abusive relationship and being hit, and being yelled at. And even though I didn't like it, at least I was comfortable with it. But now I'm out here, and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know what it is. I'm scared. I'm going to run back into that abusive relationship, or into that cycle that we were talking about.
Yeah, I used to have a friend that it was back in high school, and she she was with this guy that was, a dick to her, and she confided in me. She was like a good friend. We were just friends, And then after she broke up with him, I set her up with another friend of mine. I set her up with a friend of mine, and he was like super nice to her. Like really, he was like a real nice guy. And she just totally started like treating him like shit, like just like totally like being a total bitch with him. And I told her, hey man, like why are you, it's like introduce you to a friend of mine, and tells me that you make dates, and then like you don't even keep them, and everything. She's all like, no, I don't know, he's too nice, and I was like, he's too nice. And then then my friend just decided to just break it off, you know. But what happened was that we had already concert tickets. We and my friend, the girl, she's the one that was going to be driving because she's the only one that had a car. And so when the concert date came, so it was four of us. It was my guy friend, my girlfriend, and another not girlfriend as in girlfriend, my female friend, and then a date that I was taking. So it was the four of us going. And then we decided to go to the concert since we had already bought the concert tickets. And then after that, she's like, "Oh, could you?" We stopped to get some beers or something. It was post high school. It was a little bit after high school. And then after that, he's like, "Could you give me whatever?" And then he was being like, he was just because they were already broken up, and he still had like bitter feelings towards her, or like he was still mad, and so he was being a dick to her, you know, well, whatever, just get whatever beer you get, whatever you want, you know, like I'm gonna get what I want, you get whatever. And then when he went, she's like, "Oh, he's being so mean to me. I'm falling in love with him again."
Oh, she
Like,
said that?
that's psycho. Yeah, she
Oh,
told me that when we were alone,
yeah,
because he
yeah.
was being a dick to her. She's like, "How could you go? I don't know, whatever you want, what you do, whatever, you know." Like he was being like a total dick to her, you know. And then I said, "Oh, he's being so mean to me. I think I'm falling in love with him again."
Oh, wow.
Like that's insane.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
And what makes it even scarier is, you know, you're seeing it happen in front of you.
Uh-huh.
And as a friend, I don't know, maybe, you know, it's like, you don't, how do you deal with this? You don't know how to deal with this. Even though, like I said, like, you know, you personally know that this is maybe not the right way to do, you know, to be.
Yeah.
But you're a friend and you're like, well, you know, I don't want to be a dick and say, well, you know, this isn't the way it is,
Uh-huh.
you know, and then like, where does that put us as friends? You know, it's just like, we want to be real and honest with our friends, but at the same time, you know, we don't want to necessarily ruin the moment or hurt the relationship that we have with our friends that are the abusers or the abusees, you know, and, you know, and as younger, you know, as adult, you know, as young adult men, you know, maybe we didn't know how to deal with that, you know, but do you think you would deal with it a little differently
Well, you know,
later?
well, you know, eventually, because afterwards, because that girl, she was in, you know, she was just an abusive. I mean, she would meet nice guys and she would treat them like shit. And then if she'd meet somebody that would treat her like shit, she would keep going back, you know. And then later on, I mean, when I got to talk to her like in a more serious note, she said when she was growing up, her parents were always fighting, you know. So I think that what felt normal for her was be fighting, constantly fighting, you know, just like when you're fighting with each other, I guess that's when this is the way a husband and wife are supposed to be. Because growing up, that's what she saw always, her parents fighting, you know. I mean, that's, like we said, we're not psychiatrists or anything like that, but just from my own observations, that's the conclusion that I made, that's the reason why when he started being like mean to her, she started falling in love with him again, you know.
And now a brown and proud PSA. Life's too short to worry about trying to please others or remaining in a miserable situation or relationship just because that's all you know. Discover your awesomeness and get the courage to break the cycle. We'd be honored to have you as a compa. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening app.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be something as intense as being in an abusive relationship. I mean, you could also be like, for myself in my early 20s. I mean, even though I was fairly okay with my money habits, you know, I had a habit of just constantly getting as many credit cards as I could, you know, and I wouldn't max them out. Excuse me, I wouldn't max them out, but just knowing that I had all these credit cards, I felt like I was all chingon and everything. Yeah, I'm so badass. You know, I have
more
like
credit cards than
I have
you.
like 12 credit cards, and you know, and
It becomes a
and
rat
I didn't,
race.
I didn't, I didn't, I didn't have the best of paying jobs at the time, you know. But for me, I think it took me a while to realize why. For me, it was like the reason I felt I needed or wanted these credit cards is I grew up poor, and when I was in college, I joke a lot about it, but it's real. I would tell people, I w- I I lived off of 20-pound sack of rice, a 10-pound sack of frijoles, those Mauritian noodles, and big box of Lipton iced tea. That I would get at Costco, and that's what I would eat because that's all I can afford. And I remember, you know, when I finally graduated, I was able to get all these credit cards. Uh, and I was like, I'm never, ever going to eat beans and rice every day. I'm never going to eat Mauritian, noodles every day because I didn't like how it felt. So I had all these credit cards. And then, as unfortunately I tended to do, I would max them out and I would have to like take a whole year to pay everything down, and that happened, throughout my 20s. And I finally, it's like I'm like, what the hell am I doing, man? I mean, I'm stunting my economic growth. I'm stunting my ability to travel, because I'm having to pay off all these damn bills, and but it took me, into my late 20s to figure out, dude, just slow the roll with, with these credit cards. And because it did have a detrimental effect even to this day, because I'm thinking in my 20s, instead of having all these paying off all these credit card debts, I could have been using that money to invest, and I could have had more money in my retirement accounts and in my investment accounts, today, but luckily, I figured it out. I figured it out the hard way, unfortunately, but I figured it out, and that was that's a cycle for myself, as the financial aspect of getting these credit cards, putting myself in debt, paying it off, getting more credit cards, putting myself in debt, paying them off.
Ruben, I have the very similar experience with credit cards. Twice it happened to me in my 20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s. I was finishing up. So, I guess I was smart enough to go through a credit card counseling program.
Consolidation.
Yeah, consolidation program and the automatic payments. So, anyways, I did that once and I felt so good. And then I was walking a straight line for a while. And then again, our credit cards offers and things. And I did it again. And I'm like, and then I was at the point where I'm like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck and these credit cards are not going away. And I did it. I did what worked the first time. I was like, okay, I'll do it again. And when I finished that program, I promised myself never to do it again. And I've never done. I'm like debt free, credit cards, no credit cards, or I'm way responsible now, and my finances are in order. My financial house is in order. But that's exact same experience where I got stuck in that cycle, right? It was cyclical. I did one thing thinking that I had control over it, and then I did it again. And luckily, I broke the cycle. So that's one great example. Just briefly, we live in a capitalistic society here. That's like, I'm not going to get deep into capitalism, nothing like that, and commodities and anything, but, there's a difference between wanting nice things and being able to afford nice things. In my 20s, one of the things that I wanted was really not a need, or things that I wanted were nice things, and that's what got me in. I said, you know what, I want to get a computer, or I want to do this for my car, or I want to get a new stereo, or whatever it is. It was all material stuff that I ended up spending a lot of money on credit, and I had to, like you said, slow the roll, and I had to take a step back because um, even and this might come across as like bien chingon, like educated. I have a great understanding of capitalism and behavior. That's my background in terms of historical perspectives and that stuff. But I caught myself at some point thinking, what the heck am I doing? Like, why am I putting myself in this weird race against myself, trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? Trying to outdo my friends with the better shoes or nicer clothes or a new car or whatever it is, and I'm living off credit. And that's when I realized, like, I got sucked into you know, the behaviors that we as a society value, I guess, because we do live in a capitalistic society. And I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that you have to be able to step back and kind of look around and figure out, okay, do I need this? What's good for me? Not what's good for my friends or I don't care. I don't want to keep up with the Joneses. There's no need for that, because that's when you start altering your behavior. When you start thinking about, well, I want to be like them, or I want to be like her, or I want the latest designer jeans. That's another example. I wanted to share that perspective a little bit.
And I
about.
think part of it also, Raul, is we're living in the here and now, and only in the here and now, and
There
we're
you
not
go.
looking to the future. Like, when I would mentor the young adult Chicanos, one of the things that I would attempt to teach them is about money, because we're not taught about money in school. And like I said, I'm not going to get deep into it, but basically, this is the line that I always gave them. And I always said, you know what? No matter what amount of money that you earn or you have or you make, you can afford anything that you want. And they would look at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, if you want, you can go and get that Benzo if you want, or that Beamer, or those cool, clothes and everything. Oh, and they would get all amped up. I'm like, the thing is, though, you only have, a certain amount of money, and you have to budget that money. So if you want to get that brand new bling bling, that brand new, Benzo, it's gonna take a big chunk of your money, but you can afford it. But what are you gonna have to leave out? You're gonna have to leave out maybe eating better food. You're gonna have to leave out maybe hanging out with your friends. You're gonna leave out maybe having to live in a not so nice part of town, you know. But that's up to you, or you can get an because do you really want to be the dude that has that bomb ass car with those bomb ass rims, but you're still living in South Central? Or do you want to be the person who's driving in their Toyota, saving up their money because they're gonna buy a decent house, maybe not the nicest house, but they're gonna buy a decent house in a really good part of town? Now, where do you want to be? You know, and once again, it's because I believe we've all basically been taught via the media that it's just about the here and now, and part of that cycle is being heavily influenced by media and now by social media, and having to, like you said, Raul, keep up with this fictionary family called the Joneses, but why? They're not living your life. They're not putting food on your table. They're not clothing your kids. They're not paying your kids private school. You're doing that, but it takes an adult, to begin to figure that out. And sometimes you have to reach a certain rock bottom, whether it's a financial rock bottom, whether it's a physical rock bottom, an emotional rock bottom, to unfortunately finally get that light bulb, shining in, on top of your head, like, oh man, I've been doing it all wrong. And now what do I need to do?
One of my kids, my oldest one, we let him stay a little. He's a teenager already, so we give him a little bit of a later bedtime. The other ones, they have to be in bed like by 9, 8:45, something like that. The other one, like 9:30, give him an extra. Sometimes we let him stay up to 10, but then he has a hard time waking up in the morning. So we tell him, okay, you know what? That's it. You can't stay up late anymore. No, please. And we're no, 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 no. And so then he says, please let me stay up late one more time. And so we let him stay up late. And once again, he wakes up, gives us a hard time waking up. So then we say, okay, that's it. You can't, you can't stay up late. And then he'll wake up like the first day. He's, I'm going to wake up every day on time. And then so then he'll wake up like a whole week. So then we'll extend his bedtime. And then once again, he starts waking up late, and then we're all like, okay, it looks like we can't let you. So, and then after that, we have to go to the point to take away his electronics, and then if he doesn't feel consequences, he's going to keep doing it, and so that's what we need to do, so it's like a cycle. So we let him stay up late and he wakes up late. So then we're okay, we're revoking your extended time. You're going to go back to sleeping at the same time with your younger siblings, and so it's just, I mean, it's a little psycho, but
it is, but you have control over it.
Uh-huh.
You have control over it. I said you have control over it. You're the parent. And you're willingly,
and actually that's a good thing though, because that's a good learning and teaching moment right there, because it's better that, what's that old saying, to snip it in the bud beforehand. So I mean, you're teaching them, you're teaching your eldest son that you gain freedoms
by being responsible,
responsible. But on the flip side of that token, if you can't be responsible, then those freedoms that you just gained are going to be taken away.
And extra privileges.
And because that's the reality in life as well. I mean, because just imagine, mijo, if you actually had to go to work and you had to be responsible for paying the bills and you couldn't wake up on time and you couldn't get to work on time, what would happen?
Yeah. So
they would fire me. Oh, and what would happen if they would fire you? You're not going to get a check. Well, what do you have? You can't get a check. Well, you can't buy food. You can't pay rent or mortgage or this and this and that. Yeah. Those are the consequences, mijo. So this is why, something as simple as just staying up an extra half hour. We want you to stay up an extra half hour because, we want you to have that. But if you can't be responsible enough for yourself for this
tiny,
what's going to happen later on in life? Because there's that old saying, the way you do one thing, you do everything.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because he was trying to say like, just trying to tell us like, whether I stay up late or not, I still have a hard time waking up. So it's like his thinking was,
he's
like
manipulating you guys.
Yeah, his thinking was like telling us like, I'm waking up late because that's the type of person I am, not because I'm staying late, And we're okay, if that's how you're going to be, now we're going to start taking away privileges. Now you can't use your switch all day, you can't use your electronics all day, and so it's like, he's like, oh man, it's not just I don't have that extra privilege. Now privileges are being revoked,
He's learning the hard way.
Yeah.
But look what he said. That's because that's the kind of person I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, as parents, we had to call our kids on that. It's like, no, you're not that kind of person. It's like you can't say, I'm a loser, and then that's why I hang around with a bunch of losers, and I do loser behavior. Like, right. I mean, that's another example of that.
It's like, right now that you're saying about the loser behavior, like growing up where we grew up, like, there was a person that I used to know that was from the neighborhood that he would go to jail for about like 6 to 18 months or something. Then he'd come out, be out for about like another like 1 year. Then he'd go back in for about another and then I told him one time I saw him at a party, and I told him, this is a long time ago. Before I even had thought about the cycle went through, I just told him, I go, are you ever going to break the cycle? And then he's just like, nah. And I thought that he didn't understood the question, so I explained it to him. I go, so for the rest of your life, you're always just going to be in and out of jail? He's yeah, I think so. And he was just happy with that. I mean, he was like just matter of fact saying it, like, yeah, that's the way.
Because maybe that was his only expectations in life. That's all he knew. Because I have a similar situation with someone that I know. His situation was working for 1 year or 2 years, and then he would stop working for 1 year. and he would live off the fat of the government for about a year. And then once the benefits ran out, he would start working again.
Just long enough to get unemployed, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, it was weird because
Fucking
this dude
hell, dude.
was a very likable. He was a very likable person, and he was a really good hard worker. And when he worked, he excelled in whatever he did. But it was just in his mind, that okay, I've earned enough time to like not have to work for a year, and then he would take the year off, and I'm like, I don't know about that, man. I mean, it's just like, and life became harder for him obviously as he got older, and it's sad.
My dad used to know this man that that he used to work with that my dad worked with them in some company, and then the guy got hurt or something, and then he sued the company, and then he got some like disability or whatever. And my dad, he still kept in touch with them. Then later on, a few years later, um, his disability ran out, and he was looking for another job. And then my dad was working at another company. He's like, oh, they're hiring here where I'm at, And so then he's like, okay, he knew how to work. My dad got him a job there. Sure enough, he did something. He got hurt, and then he went on disability again. And my dad told him, man, you're making my dad my dad stopped talking to him. He's like, I went out on a limb for you, said that you're a good worker, because he did know he did know he did have skills, but he was just lazy. I mean, he's like, oh, I fell down, and and he just, that was his psycho, just.
And that's the thing, so this is gonna take it a little bit to the left. Like my wife and I, we talk about how society is structured in a way where people of color are basically always on the bottom. That's just the reality. Whether you look at the judicial aspect, the legislative aspect, the de jure versus de facto, that's the reality. And we both understand, because of the way the system is structured, we as people of color have it a hell lot harder. And then I say, because I truly believe, that, yeah, I understand this is the way the society is, this is the way it's structured. It's structured to keep us down. But that doesn't mean that as individuals, we can't maneuver our way out of a situation to make better lives for ourselves. And I give her her experience and our experience and my experience. I'm like, hey, we both grew up poor and brown. We both grew up in the inner city. We both grew up, in quote unquote broken houses, but we made decisions in our young adult life to go to college, to get an education, because that was the path for us to get out of this cycle of poverty for people of color in this nation. And, we're doing what we love, and we're helping our community, and, we're getting paid. And, not getting paid extremely well, because, teachers don't get paid very well, but we're doing a hell lot better than our parents did, and then our grandparents did. And it's, I said, we're an exception to the rule, because we made conscious decisions to maneuver our way out of the hood, out of el barrio, so we can do it, but I also understand that there are social structures in place that keep us down. As a group, we're kept down. As individuals, we can find a way to get out.
I always tell folks, believe in yourself, right? You have to love yourself, and then believe in yourself, right? And some folks find that through religion. Some folks find that through, their friends, their family, whatever it may be. But you have to get to a point where you believe in yourself and who you are, and that your life is worth everything. So you really have to build yourself up, or surround yourself with, church, friends, social groups, reading, education, whatever it is, but you have to truly believe in who you are as a person, and that your life matters, and that you as a person have value and something to contribute to the betterment of our society. And that's going to help with self-esteem. That's going to help with building your own self up and having the courage to disconnect yourself with friends or people who are going to bring you down. Having the courage to say, you know what, I know people who are in the cycle or whatever cycle level that is. I need to get out. I need to take a step. I need to listen to the mentors. I need to find a mentor, right? I need to understand who I am in relation to the bigger society, Ruben, like you said. I understand, like, okay, I'm black, I'm brown, I'm yellow, whatever color you are. I'm a woman, I'm a male. And acknowledge it, and then you can't let that beat you down. You have to find the strength to say, okay, I am worthy. I am worthy of more. That's really just an initial step there that I want to share. One tiny step is to believe in yourself.
So one thing that I want to share is like we were talking about earlier about credit card debt, the way that you pay it off and then you bring it up, and a lot of it has to do like that um, you consume more than you are supposed to. You know, you waste, you spend more than you make, than you earn. You know, and you know what? Sometimes I know there are some people that legitimately they just don't make enough to make ends meet. You know, but there are some people that they do make enough to make ends meet, but their wasting is lavished. You know, it's outrageous. So try to flip it, contribute more than you consume, kind of like what Kennedy said, that's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And, it's um, like what I said on the previous episode also, when I go to campgrounds, I always tell my nephews and everything, you know what, we're going to leave this place better than how we found it. We're going to pick up all the trash. And after we pick up all the trash that we brought in, we're going to walk around and pick up more trash that was already here before. Yeah, just try to flip it that way. Try to contribute more than what you consume. And I think
That's nice, Javi, because it's like I'm gonna leave this planet or I'm gonna leave this family better than what I came into it. That's the way I see it. So that's cool.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess what are the solutions to stopping the cycle? How do you stop it? I think we all agree it begins with the individual. It begins with you. It begins with you, Compas, out there. Um, Remember that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Remember that. And if those 5 people that you spend the most time with, if you see that they aren't doing so well in their lives, whether it's financial, emotional, intellectual, their family, or whatever it may be, then look at the mirror and see, does that reflect who you are? And then from there, ask yourself, is that okay with you? Is this what you were brought in the world to do? Just to be this? Or do you want to be more? Do you want to be able to offer more to your loved ones? There is a reality called social stratification, and there is a reality called racism and sexism. And yeah, unfortunately, if you're a person of color, if you're a woman, if you are gay or lesbian, queer, bisexual, yeah, you're gonna have it harder. That's just the reality, unfortunately, and we're slowly making changes on there. But understanding that, what can you do? Better yet, what are you willing to do? Because we can all do anything, but what are you willing to do to make life better for yourself and make life better for your loved ones? And after you think about that and you set up your plan, then you follow that plan. And I think, guys, that's the hardest thing to do, is follow through on knowing, intellectually what you need to do, but it's so hard to get over those emotional and psychological scars that we were talking about earlier. And that's where you really need that friend or those friendships, or you really need that positive person in your family to help you through. And if you don't have that, or you don't have it to the level that you need, there's no shame in saying, I need to get professional help. There's nothing at all wrong with that, because that's what they're there for, and maybe that'll help you along your path of breaking your own personal cycle. This is something that was really serious enough for us, as the three compas here, to want to throw out there, because we've seen the detrimental effects it has on people that we know and people that we love. Because this is what this podcast is all about, is to talk about difficult topics that we don't usually talk about in the brown community, and this is one of them. And the way that we learn, the way that we grow, and the way that we hopefully can break these cycles is by talking about them. So if you have ideas and thoughts, or you want to talk about this stuff, send us an email, throw it out there, and believe me, we do.
info@loscompaslounge.com.
Correct. And, believe me, we do read everything that you guys send us, and we try to respond as soon as we can, because this is not just a podcast. This is our lounge. This is our family right here, and we want to expand the lounge, the family to more compas out there. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast and give us a 5-star review. It really means a lot and would really help out this podcast.
We invite you to visit us at loscompaslounge.com to share your ideas and suggest topics for future episodes.
Until next time, compas, be proud and be brown.
That's right. Be safe.
Till next time.